The moment her lips touched his, the whole world stopped. Amara pressed her mouth against the cold blue lips of Mr. Marcus Wellington, the richest man in all of Lagos. His body lay still on the marble floor of his own mansion, surrounded by shocked guests in their expensive clothes and sparkling jewelry. Camera phones were already recording. Whispers filled the air like angry bees. A maid. A poor, nobody maid. Kissing the billionaire. In front of everyone. But Amara did not care about the gasps. She did not care about the angry stares from Mrs. Patricia, the head of the house staff who would surely fire her. She did not even care about the tears rolling down her own cheeks. All she cared about was making Mr. Marcus breathe again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, she counted, pressing down on his chest the way her grandmother had taught her long ago. Then she breathed into his mouth again, and again, and again. "Someone call for help," she screamed, but nobody moved. They were all too busy watching, too busy judging, too busy taking pictures of the poor maid who dared to put her lips on the great Marcus Wellington. His wife, Mrs. Caroline Wellington, stood frozen like a statue. Her champagne glass had fallen from her hand, shattering into 1,000 pieces on the ground. Her eyes were wide with something Amara could not understand. Was it fear? Was it anger? Was it something else entirely? Then, suddenly, Mr. Marcus coughed. Water came out of his mouth. His chest began to rise and fall. His eyes fluttered open, looking confused and lost. And the first face he saw was Amara's, her tears dropping onto his cheeks like warm rain. "You," he whispered. "You saved me." But before Amara could say anything, before she could even feel relief that he was alive, strong hands grabbed her from behind. Security guards pulled her away roughly, treating her like a criminal instead of a hero. "Get this girl out of here," Mrs. Caroline's voice cut through the air like a sharp knife. "How dare she touch my husband? How dare she?" And as Amara was dragged away from the grand hall, she saw something that made her heart sink to her feet. Mr. Marcus was trying to reach for her, trying to say something, but his wife was blocking his view, and standing in the shadows, watching everything with a small, wicked smile, was someone who should not have been smiling at all. Someone who knew exactly why Mr. Marcus had fallen into that swimming pool. Someone who wanted him dead. But who was this person? And what would happen to Amara now? Would anyone believe that she was only trying to help? Or would her one act of kindness destroy her entire life? Before we go on with this story, please tell me in the comments where you are watching from today. I would love to know what country you are in. And if you are enjoying this story so far, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and do not forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next chapter. Hit that notification bell too, so you will be the first to know when the next part comes out. Now, let us go back to the very beginning to understand how a simple village girl named Amara ended up in this incredible situation. 3 months earlier, in a small village called Ikodu, located far away from the big city of Lagos, there lived a young woman named Amara Okonkwo. She was 22 years old, with skin as dark as rich chocolate and a smile that could light up even the darkest night. But these days, Amara did not smile very often. Her mother was very sick. Mama Okonkwo had been coughing for many months. The local healer had tried everything, using herbs and prayers, but nothing worked. The sickness was in her lungs, and it was getting worse every single day. Amara would stay awake at night, listening to her mother's painful breathing, praying to God that morning would come and her mother would be better. But morning always came, and her mother was never better. "My daughter," Mama Okonkwo said one evening, her voice weak and tired, "you must stop crying. These tears will not heal me." Amara wiped her eyes quickly. "I am not crying, Mama. There is just dust in my eyes." Her mother smiled softly. They both knew it was not true, but neither said anything about it. "The doctor in the city says there is an operation that can help me," Mama Okonkwo continued, "but it costs more money than we have ever seen in our lives." Amara's heart squeezed tight. She knew about the operation. She had walked for 3 hours to reach the hospital in the nearby town just to ask about it. When the doctor told her the price, she had felt like the ground was swallowing her whole. 2 million naira. That was like asking for the moon and the stars. I will find a way, Mama, Amara said, trying to sound brave. I promise you. I will find a way. But how? Amara worked in the village, helping Mama Chidi sell vegetables in the market. She earned only 500 naira a day, barely enough to buy food. At this rate, it would take her many lifetimes to save enough money for her mother's operation. That night, Amara could not sleep. She lay on her thin mat, staring at the ceiling made of rusted zinc sheets. The moon peeked through the holes, creating little spots of light on the floor. She thought about her father, who had died when she was only 10 years old. She thought about her brother, Chidi, who had traveled to the city years ago looking for work and had never come back. She thought about all the dreams she used to have, of going to university, of becoming a teacher, of changing the world. Those dreams felt so far away now. The next morning, Amara walked to the market as usual. But something was different today. There was a big, shiny car parked near the entrance, something nobody in the village had ever seen before. It was as black as midnight and as long as a small house. People gathered around it, pointing and whispering. It belongs to a rich woman from Lagos, Mama Chidi explained, her eyes wide with wonder. She is looking for girls to work in her big house. They say she pays very well. Amara's heart began to beat faster. How well? Some say 50,000 naira a month. Maybe even more. 50,000 naira. That was 100 times what Amara earned now. If she worked for 3 or 4 years, she could save enough for her mother's operation. Without thinking, Amara ran toward the car. Several other girls from the village had already gathered there, all hoping for a chance to escape poverty. A tall woman in an elegant dress stood beside the car, looking at each girl like she was choosing mangoes at the market. You, the woman pointed at one girl, too short. You, she pointed at another, too slow. You, she pointed at a third, too clumsy. One by one, the girls were rejected. Some walked away crying. Others walked away angry. But Amara stayed, even as her knees shook with fear. Finally, the woman's eyes landed on her. You, come closer. Amara stepped forward, trying to stand tall despite her worn-out dress and dusty feet. Can you read? The woman asked. Yes, Ma. I finished secondary school. The woman raised an eyebrow. Can you cook? Yes, Ma. My mother taught me. Can you clean? Yes, Ma. Very well. The woman walked around Amara slowly, examining her from head to toe. It made Amara feel like a goat being inspected before purchase. But she said nothing. She endured it. For her mother, she would endure anything. What is your name? The woman finally asked. Amara Okonkwo. Do you know where Lagos is, Amara Okonkwo? Yes, Ma. It is the big city, very far from here. It is indeed very far. If I take you there, you will not see your family for a long time. Can you handle that? Amara thought about her mother, lying sick in their small hut. She thought about the operation that could save her life. She thought about the dreams that were slowly dying. Yes, Ma, I can handle it. The woman smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile a snake might give before striking. Good. My name is Mrs. Patricia Adeyemi. I am the head of household staff for the Wellington family. They are the richest family in all of Nigeria. Mr. Marcus Wellington himself is worth more money than you can possibly imagine. You will work in his mansion, cleaning his floors, washing his clothes, and serving his guests. The pay is 60,000 naira a month. You will send money home to your family, but you must follow all my rules without question. Do you understand? 60,000 naira. Amara's heart nearly jumped out of her chest. Yes, Ma, I understand. I will follow all your rules. Then get in the car. We leave immediately. Amara looked back at the village one last time. Somewhere behind those trees, in that tiny hut with the leaking roof, her mother was waiting. Amara silently made a promise that she would come back. She would come back with enough money to save her mother's life. No matter what it took, she climbed into the big black car, and the door closed behind her with a heavy thud. As the car began to move, taking her away from everything she had ever known, Amara closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. God, please protect me. Please help me save my mother. Please, let this be the right decision. She did not know then that this decision would change her life forever. She did not know that she would soon meet people both kind and cruel. She did not know about the secrets hidden in the Wellington mansion, secrets dark enough to destroy families. And she certainly did not know that one day, in front of hundreds of people, she would press her lips against Marcus Wellington's cold mouth and become the most talked about maid in all of Nigeria. The journey to Lagos took many hours. Amara had never been in a car for so long. At first, she was excited, watching the world pass by through the window. The trees of her village gave way to bigger towns, then to highways with more cars than she had ever seen. But as the hours passed, tiredness crept in. Mrs. Patricia sat in the front seat, speaking on her phone in a language that sounded important and complicated. She never once looked back at Amara or asked if she was comfortable. Finally, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the car entered Lagos. Amara gasped. She had heard stories about Lagos, about its tall buildings and bright lights, but nothing had prepared her for this. Buildings reached up to the sky like giants trying to touch the clouds. Cars honked and pushed against each other like impatient cattle. People walked everywhere, thousands of them, all dressed in clothes nicer than anything Amara owned. "Close your mouth before a fly enters it," Mrs. Patricia said sharply, finally looking back at her. "You are in Lagos now. Try not to embarrass yourself." Amara closed her mouth quickly, her cheeks burning with shame. The car drove through the busy streets for another hour before finally turning into a quiet road lined with tall gates and security guards. These were the houses of the rich, the kind of houses that Amara had only seen in the small television at Mama Chidi's shop. Then the car stopped in front of the biggest gate of all. "Welcome to Wellington Manor," Mrs. Patricia announced. The gates opened slowly, revealing a driveway that seemed to go on forever. Palm trees stood on both sides like soldiers standing guard. Flowers of every color bloomed in perfect rows, and at the end of the driveway stood the mansion itself. Amara had thought the buildings in Lagos were impressive, but this house made those buildings look like toys. It was white and gold, with pillars like those in the history books about ancient Greece. Fountains danced in the front yard, their water catching the last light of the setting sun. There were more windows than Amara could count, each one bigger than her entire hut back home. This was where she would live now. This palace. This dream made of stone and marble. But as the car parked and Amara stepped out on shaky legs, she noticed something strange. A figure was watching her from one of the upstairs windows. Just a shadow, really, impossible to identify. But Amara felt its eyes on her, cold and heavy. Something about that shadow made her shiver. She looked away quickly, following Mrs. Patricia toward the servants' entrance at the back of the mansion. She told herself she was just being silly, that she was just tired from the long journey. But deep inside, a small voice whispered a warning. This beautiful house held dark secrets, and Amara had just walked right into the middle of them. Mrs. Patricia led Amara through a small door at the back of the mansion, far away from the grand entrance with its golden handles and marble steps. This door was plain and wooden, the kind of door that servants used, the kind of door that reminded people like Amara of their place in this world. "Remember, Mrs. Patricia said as they walked through a narrow hallway, "you are invisible here. The family does not want to see you, hear you, or smell you. You clean when they are not around. You serve when they call. You speak only when spoken to. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ma," Amara replied quietly, her eyes taking in everything around her. Even the servants' hallway was nicer than any building in her village. The floors were clean tiles, not dirt. The walls were painted fresh, white, not crumbling clay. Light bulbs hung from the ceiling, bright and steady, not the flickering candles Amara was used to. If this was how the servants lived, she could not imagine how the family lived. They climbed a narrow staircase and reached a long corridor with many doors on both sides. Mrs. Patricia stopped in front of one of them and pushed it open. "This is your room. You share it with 3 other girls. Your bed is the one by the window. You have 30 minutes to wash yourself and change into your uniform. Then come to the kitchen for your duties." Before Amara could say thank you, Mrs. Patricia was already walking away, her shoes clicking sharply against the floor. Amara stepped into the room and looked around. It was small but clean, with 4 beds arranged neatly against the walls. The bed by the window, her bed, had a thin mattress and a folded gray uniform on top of it. Compared to the mat she slept on at home, this felt like luxury. "You must be the new girl." Amara turned around quickly. A young woman about her age was sitting on one of the other beds, watching her with curious eyes. She had a round, friendly face and hair braided in neat cornrows. "My name is Blessing," the young woman said with a warm smile. "Welcome to Wellington Manor, or as I like to call it, Wellington Prison." "Prison?" Amara asked, confused. Blessing laughed softly. "I'm only joking. Well, half joking. Mrs. Patricia has more rules than the government, but you will get used to it." We all did. Amara relaxed a little. It felt good to see a friendly face after such a long and strange day. "My name is Amara. I am from Ikodu village." "Ikodu? That is very far. You must miss your family already." The mention of her family made Amara's heart ache. She thought about her mother, alone in that small hut, waiting for her daughter to send help. "I do," Amara admitted. "But I am here for a reason. I need to make money for my mother's operation." Blessing's eyes softened with understanding. "Many of us are here for similar reasons. My father lost his job 2 years ago. My salary here feeds my whole family, including my 4 younger siblings. This job is hard, but it puts food on the table." Amara nodded, feeling a little better. She was not alone in her struggles. There were others who understood. "Let me give you some advice," Blessing continued, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "Stay away from Mrs. Caroline. That is Mr. Marcus's wife. She has a temper like fire, and she does not like the maids, especially the young, pretty ones like you." "Why?" Amara asked. Blessing shrugged. "Nobody knows for sure. Some say she is jealous. Some say she is just cruel. All I know is that 3 girls before you were fired because of her. They did nothing wrong. She just did not like their faces." Amara swallowed hard. She could not afford to be fired. Her mother's life depended on this job. "What about Mr. Marcus?" she asked. "What is he like?" Something changed in Blessing's expression. Her eyes grew distant, thoughtful. "Mr. Marcus is different. He is not like the other rich people. He actually sees us, you know? Like we are real people, not just furniture. Sometimes he even says good morning to the staff. Mrs. Patricia hates it because she thinks it makes us forget our place. But I think he is just kind." Kind. That was a strange word to describe a billionaire. In all the stories Amara had heard about rich people, they were always greedy and heartless, stepping on poor people to climb higher. Could Mr. Marcus Wellington really be different? "Enough talking," Blessing said suddenly, glancing at the small clock on the wall. "You need to get ready before Mrs. Patricia comes looking for you. Trust me, you do not want to make her angry on your first day." Amara quickly washed herself in the small bathroom at the end of the corridor. The water came out of the tap clean and clear, not brown like the water from the well in her village. She changed into her gray uniform, a simple dress with a white apron, and tied her hair back in a neat bun. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she almost did not recognize the girl staring back at her. That girl looked like a proper maid, someone who belonged in a mansion like this. But inside, she was still Amara from Ikodu, the girl who used to catch grasshoppers in the fields and dream about touching the clouds. She made her way to the kitchen, following the directions Blessing had given her. The kitchen was enormous, bigger than her entire house back home. Pots and pans hung from the ceiling like shining ornaments. A large woman stood by the stove, stirring something that smelled absolutely delicious. "You must be the new one," the woman said without turning around. "I am Mama Cook. Everyone calls me that because I do not like my real name. You will help me prepare dinner tonight. Can you peel yams?" "Yes, Ma," Amara said eagerly. "I am very good at peeling yams." "Good. The yams are over there. Make sure you peel them thin. Mr. Marcus does not like thick skins in his food." Amara got to work immediately, grateful for a task she knew how to do. As she peeled yam after yam, she listened to Mama Cook humming old songs and gossiping with the other kitchen staff. She learned many things during those hours. She learned that Mr. Marcus Wellington had inherited his wealth from his father, who had built a business empire selling oil and gas. She learned that Mr. Marcus was now 42 years old and had been married to Mrs. Caroline for 15 years. She learned that they had no children, which was apparently a big scandal among the rich families of Lagos. She also learned that Mr. Marcus had a younger brother named Victor, who lived in another wing of the mansion. Unlike Mr. Marcus, Victor did not work. He spent his days playing golf and attending parties, living off the family's wealth without contributing anything. "Victor Wellington is trouble," Mama Cook warned, lowering her voice. "Stay far away from him. He has a wandering eye and wandering hands, if you understand what I mean." Amara understood perfectly. She had encountered men like that in her village too. She would be very careful. By the time dinner was ready, Amara's arms were aching and her feet were sore. But she did not complain. She helped carry the food to the dining room, walking through parts of the mansion she had not seen before. The dining room took her breath away. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow lights across the walls. The table was long enough to seat 20 people, made from dark wood that shone like glass. Paintings of serious-looking men hung on the walls, probably the Wellington ancestors who had built this empire. And sitting at the head of the table was Mr. Marcus Wellington himself. Amara had expected him to look stern and intimidating, like the men in those paintings. But Mr. Marcus looked tired. His shoulders were slumped, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He was handsome in a distinguished way, with gray streaks in his black hair and a neatly trimmed beard. When Amara placed a dish on the table, being very careful not to make any noise, Mr. Marcus looked up at her. "Thank you," he said quietly. 2 simple words, but they hit Amara like a wave. No rich person had ever thanked her for anything before. "You are welcome, sir," she replied softly, remembering at the last second to bow her head. Mrs. Patricia, who was supervising from the corner, shot Amara a deadly look. Maids were not supposed to speak to the family unless asked a question. Amara quickly returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. But she could not stop thinking about those 2 words. Thank you. Such a small thing that costs nothing, yet so rare in this world. Maybe Blessing was right. Maybe Mr. Marcus Wellington was different. The days turned into weeks, and Amara slowly settled into her new life. She woke up at 5 in the morning. Before the sun rose, she cleaned rooms that were already spotless. She polished silver that already sparkled. She washed clothes that barely looked worn. The work was not hard compared to farming under the hot village sun. But it was lonely. The rules were strict. No talking during work hours. No laughing too loud. No running in the hallways. Sometimes Amara felt like she was a ghost, moving through the mansion without leaving any trace. Every month, she sent most of her salary back to her mother. She kept only a small amount for herself, enough to buy soap and small necessities. Blessing taught her how to use the money transfer service on a phone, something Amara had never done before. When she called her mother for the first time using Blessing's phone, she cried so much she could barely speak. "My daughter." Mama Okonkwo's voice crackled through the phone. "I am so proud of you. But please, take care of yourself. Do not work too hard." "I am fine, Mama. I eat well here. The bed is soft. Do not worry about me." How can a mother not worry? It is our job. They talked for only 5 minutes because phone calls were expensive. But those 5 minutes gave Amara enough strength to last another month. One afternoon, about 2 months after Amara arrived, something unusual happened. She was cleaning the library. A huge room filled with more books than she had ever seen. The shelves reached all the way to the ceiling, and there was a ladder that rolled on wheels so people could reach the highest books. Amara loved this room. Sometimes, when no one was watching, she would open a book and read a few pages, hungry for the knowledge inside. On this afternoon, she thought she was alone, but when she turned around with her feather duster, she found Mr. Marcus standing right behind her. Amara gasped and dropped the duster. "I am so sorry, sir," she exclaimed, bending down quickly to pick it up. "I did not know you were here. I will leave immediately." "Please, there is no need," Mr. Marcus said gently. "I did not mean to startle you. I was just looking for a book, but I seem to have forgotten which one." He smiled. and it transformed his tired face into something warm and approachable. Amara did not know what to do. The rules said she should leave immediately when a family member entered a room. But Mr. Marcus was standing between her and the door, and it would be rude to push past him. "What kind of book were you looking for, sir?" she heard herself ask. Mr. Marcus looked surprised, as if he was not used to servants speaking to him. But then his smile widened. "Something about history, I think. Something to remind me that the world existed before all these business meetings and contracts." Amara thought for a moment. She remembered seeing a book on one of the lower shelves, a thick book with a worn cover that looked like it had been read many times. "There is a book over there, sir," she pointed carefully. "It is about the ancient kingdoms of Africa. I saw it while dusting, and the cover looked very interesting." Mr. Marcus walked to where she pointed and pulled out the book. His eyes lit up when he saw it. "This was my father's favorite book," he said softly, running his hand over the cover. "I have been looking for it for months." "How did you notice it?" Amara felt her cheeks grow warm. "I like books, sir. I notice them even when I am working." "You like to read?" "Yes, sir, very much. I finished secondary school before coming here." Mr. Marcus looked at her with new interest. "What is your name?" "Amara, sir. Amara Okonkwo." "Well, Amara Okonkwo, you are welcome to read any book in this library. Consider it a standing permission from me." Amara's eyes widened. "Really, sir?" "But Mrs. Patricia said we are not allowed to touch the family's belongings." "Mrs. Patricia has many rules, Mr. Marcus said with a hint of amusement. "But this library belongs to me, and I make the rules here. Books are meant to be read, not to collect dust." He winked at her, then walked out of the library with his father's book under his arm. Amara stood frozen for a long moment, unable to believe what had just happened. The richest man in Nigeria had just given her permission to read his books, had spoken to her like she was a real person, had even winked at her like they shared a secret. She did not notice the figure standing in the shadows of the hallway. She did not see Mrs. Caroline Wellington watching with eyes full of poison, and she certainly did not hear the words Mrs. Caroline whispered under her breath. "So my husband has found a new toy to play with. We will see about that." From that day forward, things began to change for Amara. But not in the way she expected. Mrs. Caroline started paying attention to her. At first, it seemed innocent enough. The lady of the house would walk past Amara while she cleaned and make small comments. "You missed a spot there. That window is still dirty. Your uniform is wrinkled. Do you not have any self-respect?" Amara would apologize and work harder, thinking she was simply not meeting the high standards of the house. But no matter how hard she worked, Mrs. Caroline always found something wrong. Then the comments became crueler. "Where did Mrs. Patricia find you?" "The garbage dump." "You smell like the village. Perhaps you should bathe more often." "That face of yours? It makes me lose my appetite. Try not to be seen during meal times." Amara endured it all in silence. She could not afford to lose this job. Her mother's operation was getting closer, and she only needed to work for 2 more years to save enough money. But one evening, something happened that Amara could not ignore. She was serving tea in the sitting room where Mrs. Caroline was entertaining her friends, rich women who dripped with gold and designer clothes. Amara kept her head down, moving quietly like Mrs. Patricia had taught her. Then she felt a foot push against her ankle. She tripped. The tea tray went flying. Hot liquid splashed everywhere, including on Mrs. Caroline's expensive white dress. The room went silent. Mrs. Caroline stood up slowly, her face twisted with fury. "You stupid, clumsy girl. Look what you have done." "I am sorry, Ma," Amara cried, dropping to her knees to clean up the mess. "I did not mean to. I tripped." "You tripped because you are useless, a worthless village rat who does not belong in this house." The other women giggled behind their hands, enjoying the show. Amara's eyes burned with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She cleaned up the mess as fast as she could, her hands shaking with humiliation. But deep inside, she knew the truth. She had felt that foot. Mrs. Caroline had tripped her on purpose. This was not an accident. This was a message. Mrs. Caroline wanted her gone. That night, Amara cried into her pillow, muffling the sound so her roommates would not hear. She wanted to go home. She wanted to hug her mother. She wanted to forget all about the Wellington mansion and its cruel mistress. But she could not give up. Not yet. Not when her mother needed her. The next morning, Amara woke up with swollen eyes but a determined heart. She would survive this. She would endure whatever Mrs. Caroline threw at her. She would save her mother's life, no matter what. She had no idea that her biggest test was coming much sooner than she expected, because in 3 weeks, the Wellington family would throw their annual charity ball, and on that night, everything would change forever. The news spread through the servants' quarters like wildfire. Every year, the Wellington family hosted a grand party for the richest and most powerful people in Nigeria. Governors attended, celebrities attended, even international guests flew in from other countries. For the servants, it was the hardest night of the year. They would work from dawn until the sun rose again, cooking, cleaning, serving, and smiling through their exhaustion. This year will be even bigger, Blessing told Amara as they folded napkins into fancy shapes. I heard Mrs. Caroline wants to impress some people from America. She has ordered flowers from Dubai and champagne from France. The budget is over 50 million naira just for decorations. 50 million naira. That was enough to save 50 mothers. Amara could not even imagine such money being spent on one party. Mr. Marcus does not like these parties, Blessing continued. He thinks they are wasteful. But Mrs. Caroline loves to show off. It is the only time she seems happy. As the days passed, the mansion transformed. Workers came to install new lights. Decorators hung silk ribbons from every surface. Florists filled every corner with arrangements that looked too beautiful to be real. And through it all, Mrs. Caroline supervised with an iron fist, screaming at anyone who did not meet her impossible standards. The night before the ball, Amara was assigned to help set up the poolside area. The swimming pool was massive, shaped like a rectangle, and filled with water so blue it looked like liquid sky. Floating candles would be placed on the water tomorrow, creating a magical effect. But tonight, the pool was empty and still. Amara was carrying a box of crystal glasses when she overheard voices coming from behind a large pillar. She froze when she recognized them. Everything is arranged, a man's voice said. It was smooth and careless, the voice of someone who had never worked hard in his life. Tomorrow night, during the toast, it will happen. And you are sure no one will suspect? This voice belonged to a woman, cold and sharp. Of course not. Everyone will think it was an accident. A tragic accident. The woman laughed softly. Good. After tomorrow, everything will finally be mine. As it should have been from the beginning. Amara held her breath, pressing herself against the wall. She could not see the speakers, but something about their words made her blood run cold. What were they planning? What accident? She wanted to hear more. But at that moment, her foot bumped against the box she was carrying. The glasses inside clinked together. The voices stopped immediately. Who is there? The man demanded. Amara panicked. She grabbed her box and hurried away as fast as she could without running. Her heart was beating so loud she was sure they could hear it. She did not stop until she reached the kitchen, where she pretended to be busy arranging glasses in a cabinet. Her hands were trembling. Should she tell someone what she heard? But what exactly had she heard? 2 people talking about an accident. That could mean anything. And who would believe a simple maid against the word of whoever those people were? No. She would keep quiet. She would mind her own business. She would survive. But tomorrow night, at the charity ball, Amara would discover that some secrets cannot be ignored. Because the accident those people planned was not for some random guest. It was for Mr. Marcus Wellington himself. The morning of the charity ball arrived with golden sunshine and nervous energy. Every servant in Wellington Manor was awake before the roosters, preparing for the biggest night of the year. The kitchen was filled with the smell of roasting meat and baking pastries. The hallways echoed with the sound of hurrying footsteps and urgent instructions. Amara had barely slept the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard those mysterious voices whispering about an accident. She told herself she was being foolish, that she had probably misunderstood what she heard. Rich people talked about strange things all the time. It did not mean anything dangerous. But the knot in her stomach would not go away. Amara, stop daydreaming and come help me with these flowers. Mrs. Patricia's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Amara rushed to obey, carrying heavy vases filled with roses and lilies to the grand ballroom. The room had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like captured stars. White and gold fabric draped from the ceiling like clouds. A stage had been set up at one end for the live band that would play music all night. And everywhere, there were flowers. So many flowers that Amara felt like she had walked into a magical garden. "It is beautiful," she whispered without meaning to. "Beauty costs money, Missus," Patricia replied coldly. "Money that you and I will never have. Now stop staring and start working." The guests arrive at 7 o'clock, and everything must be perfect. The hours flew by in a blur of activity. Amara polished glasses until they sparkled. She folded napkins until her fingers ached. She helped arrange chairs and set tables and carry supplies from one end of the mansion to the other. By 6 o'clock, she was exhausted. But there was no time to rest. "All female servants will change into the special uniforms for tonight, Mrs." Patricia announced to the gathered staff. "You will wear black dresses with white aprons. Your hair must be neat. Your faces must be clean. You will smile at the guests but never speak unless spoken to. You will be invisible but helpful. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ma," everyone replied in unison. Amara changed into her special uniform, a black dress that was slightly nicer than her usual gray one. Blessing helped her pin her hair back and even let her borrow a small pair of earrings. "You look nice," Blessing said with a smile, "like a proper Lagos girl." Amara looked at herself in the mirror. She did look different, more polished, more refined. But inside, she was still the village girl who missed her mother and dreamed of going home. At exactly 7 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. Amara had never seen so many fancy cars in her life. They rolled up to the mansion one after another, long and shiny and expensive. Men in suits stepped out, followed by women in gowns that sparkled with diamonds and gold. Everyone was laughing and greeting each other like old friends, kissing cheeks and shaking hands. Amara stood by the entrance to the ballroom, holding a tray of champagne glasses. Her job was to offer drinks to the guests as they entered. Simple enough, except her hands would not stop shaking. "Relax," Blessing whispered from beside her. "They are just people, rich, annoying people, but still just people." Amara tried to smile, but it felt stiff on her face. The first hour passed smoothly. Guests took champagne from her tray without even looking at her face. They talked about business deals and vacation homes and other things Amara did not understand. She was invisible, just as Mrs. Patricia wanted. Then she saw him. Mr. Marcus Wellington walked into the ballroom wearing a perfectly fitted black suit. His gray-streaked hair was combed back neatly, and he looked less tired than usual. Almost handsome, Amara thought, then quickly pushed that thought away. Beside him was Mrs. Caroline, dressed in a stunning red gown that made her look like a queen of fire. Her jewelry alone probably cost more than Amara would earn in 10 lifetimes. She smiled at the guests, but Amara noticed that the smile never reached her eyes. And walking slightly behind them was a man Amara had seen only a few times before. Mr. Victor Wellington, Marcus's younger brother. He was taller than Marcus, with a more athletic build and a face that some might call handsome, but there was something about his eyes that made Amara uncomfortable. They were always watching, always calculating. When Victor's gaze swept across the room and landed on Amara, she quickly looked down at her tray. Her heart began to beat faster. She remembered his voice now. From last night, behind the pillar, that smooth, careless voice talking about an accident. It was Victor. But who was the woman with him? Amara had not recognized that voice. The party continued, growing louder and more energetic as the guests drank more champagne. The band played lively music that made people tap their feet and sway their hips. Waiters circled the room with trays of delicious food that Amara had helped prepare but would never taste. Around 9 o'clock, Mrs. Caroline climbed onto the small stage and took the microphone. The band stopped playing, and the room grew quiet. "Good evening, everyone," Mrs. Caroline said, her voice smooth and confident. "Welcome to the annual Wellington Charity Ball. My husband and I are so grateful that you could join us tonight." Applause filled the room. Mrs. Caroline smiled her cold smile. As you know, this event raises money for children who cannot afford to go to school. Last year, we raised over 100 million naira. This year, I hope we can do even better. More applause. More smiles. But before we continue with the festivities, I would like to invite my dear husband, Marcus, to say a few words. She gestured toward Mr. Marcus, who was standing near the edge of the crowd. He looked surprised, as if he had not expected to speak. But he recovered quickly and made his way to the stage. Amara watched him carefully. Something about tonight felt wrong. The air was heavy with tension that nobody else seemed to notice. Mr. Marcus took the microphone and cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. And thank you to my wife for organizing this beautiful event. He glanced at Mrs. Caroline, who nodded graciously. Education is something very close to my heart, Mr. Marcus continued. My father grew up poor, unable to read or write. He taught himself everything and built this family's fortune from nothing. He always believed that every child deserves a chance to learn, no matter where they come from. Amara felt her eyes grow wet. She thought about her own dreams of becoming a teacher, dreams she had put aside to save her mother's life. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that the Wellington Foundation will be doubling its contribution to the scholarship fund. We will send 500 more children to school this year. The crowd erupted in applause. But Amara noticed that Mrs. Caroline's smile had become tight and forced, and Victor, standing in the shadows near the back of the room, was whispering to a woman Amara could not see clearly. And now, Mr. Marcus said, let us raise our glasses in a toast. To education, to opportunity, to the future. Waiters began circulating with fresh glasses of champagne. Everyone took one, including Mr. Marcus. The golden liquid sparkled under the chandeliers. To the future, the crowd echoed. Mr. Marcus raised his glass to his lips, and suddenly, Amara remembered. Tomorrow night, during the toast, it will happen. The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. Her tray slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor, glasses shattering everywhere. People turned to stare at her, annoyed by the disruption. But Amara did not care. Her eyes were fixed on Mr. Marcus, on the glass that was about to touch his lips. She did not think. She did not plan. She simply ran. Sir, do not drink that, she screamed, pushing through the crowd like a mad woman. Everything happened in slow motion. Mr. Marcus looked up, confused. Mrs. Caroline's face twisted with fury. Victor stepped forward from the shadows, his expression dark. Amara reached Mr. Marcus just as he began to tilt the glass. She slapped it out of his hand, sending champagne spraying across his expensive suit. The room gasped. What is the meaning of this? Mrs. Caroline shrieked. Guards! Remove this girl immediately! But before the guards could reach her, before anyone could stop her, Mr. Marcus held up his hand. Wait, he said quietly, but his voice carried authority. Let her speak. Amara was breathing hard, her whole body trembling. Everyone was staring at her. Hundreds of eyes, judging her, condemning her. She was just a maid, a nobody. Who was she to cause such a scene? But she thought about her mother, lying sick at home. She thought about the kind man who had given her permission to read his books. She thought about the voices she had heard, planning something terrible. Sir, she said, her voice shaking but clear, I think someone put something bad in your drink. I heard people talking last night. They said something would happen during the toast. An accident. I think they meant to hurt you. Silence. Complete and total silence. Then Mrs. Caroline laughed. A harsh and ugly sound. This is ridiculous. The girl is clearly insane. She probably wanted attention, or maybe she is trying to steal from us. Guards, take her away. 2 security guards grabbed Amara's arms roughly. She struggled but could not break free. Please, sir, she cried out to Mr. Marcus. Please believe me. I am telling the truth. Mr. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. His eyes searched her face, looking for something. Lies? Madness? Or perhaps truth? Test the drink, he said finally. What? Mrs. Caroline sputtered. Marcus, this is absurd. You cannot possibly believe this village girl over your own wife. I did not say I believed anyone. Mr. Marcus replied calmly. I simply want to test the drink. If there is nothing wrong with it, then we can punish this girl appropriately. But if there is something wrong with it, he left the sentence hanging in the air like a threat. A tense murmur rippled through the crowd. This was not the entertainment they had expected. This was real drama, the kind that would be gossiped about for years. One of Mr. Marcus's personal security guards, a tall man with a serious face, retrieved the fallen glass and what remained of the champagne. He pulled out a small kit from his pocket, the kind used to test for poisons and drugs. The room held its breath. Amara prayed silently. Please, God, please let me be right. Not because she wanted to be proven right, but because she wanted Mr. Marcus to be safe. The security guard dipped a small strip into the liquid and waited. Seconds felt like hours. Then the strip changed color. The guard looked up, his face pale. Sir, this drink has been contaminated. It contains a substance that could cause cardiac arrest. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed and dropped their own glasses, afraid they had been poisoned too. Mrs. Caroline backed away, her face white as a ghost. Victor tried to slip toward the exit but was stopped by other guards, and Mr. Marcus stood perfectly still, staring at Amara like he was seeing her for the first time. You saved my life, he said softly, his voice lost in the chaos around them. Amara could not speak. She could only nod, tears streaming down her face. In the confusion that followed, nobody noticed when Mrs. Caroline quietly disappeared from the ballroom. Nobody saw her hurrying up the stairs to her private chambers. Nobody heard her making a frantic phone call. It failed, she hissed into the phone. That stupid maid ruined everything. We need to move to the backup plan. Tonight. Yes, I understand the risks. Just do it. She hung up and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her beautiful face was twisted with hatred and desperation. She had worked too hard for too long. She had smiled and pretended and played the perfect wife for 15 years. She would not let some village girl destroy everything now. If Marcus would not die by poison, then he would die another way. And this time, there would be no one to save him. Meanwhile, down in the ballroom, the police had arrived. Guests were being questioned and sent home. The servants were gathered in the kitchen, whispering among themselves about the incredible events of the night. Amara sat alone in a corner, still wearing her champagne-stained uniform. Her hands would not stop shaking. She kept replaying the moment over and over in her mind. The toast, the glass, the scream, the chaos. She had done something incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid. She was not sure which one yet. Amara. She looked up to find Mr. Marcus standing before her. He had changed out of his wetsuit into simple trousers and a white shirt. Without his formal clothes, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a regular person. Sir, she said, starting to stand. Please sit, he said gently, taking a seat beside her. I think you have earned the right to rest. They sat in silence for a moment. The noise of the kitchen seemed far away. How did you know? Mr. Marcus finally asked. About the poison? Amara told him everything. About cleaning the poolside area. About hearing the voices behind the pillar. About recognizing one of the voices as Victor's. Mr. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, his face was hard and sad at the same time. My own brother, he murmured. I always knew Victor was jealous of me, but I never thought he would try to kill me. I am sorry, sir, Amara said softly. Do not be sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. You saved my life at great risk to yourself. Most people would have stayed silent to protect their jobs. Amara thought about her mother, about the money she needed, about everything she could lose. I almost did stay silent, she admitted. But then I thought about what kind of person I want to be. My mother taught me that doing the right thing is never the wrong choice, even when it is hard. Mr. Marcus smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She is the wisest person I know. They sat in comfortable silence for another moment. Then Mr. Marcus stood up. The police want to question you tomorrow. But tonight, you should rest. Mrs. Patricia will give you a private room so you can sleep without disturbance. Thank you, sir. He started to walk away, then paused and turned back. Amara, I do not know what the future holds. But I want you to know that you will always have a place in this house. Whatever you need, you only have to ask." Before Amara could respond, he was gone. She sat alone again, trying to process everything that had happened. A few hours ago, she was a nameless maid, carrying champagne. Now, she was the girl who had saved Marcus Wellington's life. Her mother would never believe this story. That night, Amara slept in a private room for the first time in her life. The bed was soft and the sheets were clean and everything smelled like lavender. But she could not relax. Every small noise made her jump. Every shadow seemed threatening, because somewhere in this mansion, danger was still lurking. Victor was in police custody, but he was not the woman Amara had heard. That voice, cold and sharp, belonged to someone else. Someone who was still free. Someone who was probably very, very angry. At around 3 in the morning, Amara heard footsteps outside her door. She held her breath, lying perfectly still in the darkness. The footsteps paused. The door handle slowly turned. But the door was locked, just as Mr. Marcus's guard had instructed. A long moment passed. Then the footsteps moved away, disappearing down the hallway. Amara did not sleep for the rest of the night. When morning came, she was exhausted but alert. She washed her face, put on her uniform, and prepared to face whatever this new day would bring. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. She was walking to the kitchen for breakfast when she heard screaming coming from the main house. Servants were running in all directions, their faces pale with fear. "What is happening?" Amara grabbed Blessing's arm. Blessing was crying. "It is Mr. Marcus." They found him in the swimming pool. He is not breathing. Amara's blood turned to ice. Without thinking, she ran toward the pool, pushing past servants and guards who tried to stop her. Her feet carried her faster than she had ever run before. She burst through the pool doors and saw a sight that would haunt her forever. Mr. Marcus was lying on the marble floor beside the pool, his face blue, his body still. Water surrounded him like a dark halo. A crowd of people stood around him, frozen with shock. And standing at the edge of the crowd, with an expression of perfect concern that did not match her eyes, was Mrs. Caroline Wellington. Their eyes met for just a moment. And in that moment, Amara knew. Mrs. Caroline was the woman behind the pillar. Mrs. Caroline was the one who wanted her husband dead. Mrs. Caroline was the one who had tried Amara's door in the middle of the night. And now, while everyone was panicking and crying, Mrs. Caroline was watching her husband die. "Someone do something," a guest screamed. "Call an ambulance," another shouted. But Amara knew that an ambulance would take too long. By the time they arrived, Mr. Marcus would be gone. She pushed through the crowd and dropped to her knees beside him. She put her ear to his chest. Nothing. She checked for breathing. Nothing. But her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind from years ago, teaching her what to do when someone stopped breathing. Push on the chest, breathe into the mouth, push again. Do not stop until they come back or until you have no strength left. Amara placed her hands on Mr. Marcus's chest, one on top of the other, just like her grandmother had shown her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, she counted, pressing down hard. Then she tilted his head back, opened his mouth, and breathed into him. Their lips touched. His were cold and blue. Hers were warm and desperate. She heard gasps behind her, whispers of shock and scandal. A maid kissing the billionaire in front of everyone. But she did not care. She breathed into him again, and again, and again. "Come back," she whispered between breaths. "Please come back." The world around her faded away. There was only her and Mr. Marcus and the fight for his life. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. And then finally, miraculously, he coughed. Water poured from his mouth. His chest began to rise and fall on its own. His eyes fluttered open, confused and unfocused. The crowd erupted in cheers and cries of relief, but Amara barely heard them. She was staring at Mrs. Caroline, who stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. Their eyes met again, and this time, Mrs. Caroline's mask slipped just enough to show the monster underneath. She knew that Amara knew, and Amara knew that this was far from over. As the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, As servants rushed to help their master, as the chaos of the morning swirled around her, Amara made a silent vow. She would protect Mr. Marcus. She would expose the truth. She would not let Mrs. Caroline win, even if it cost her everything. Because some things were more important than money, more important than safety, more important than her own life. Things like justice, things like truth, things like saving a good man from the people who wanted him dead. The ambulance arrived and took Mr. Marcus away. Amara watched them load him into the vehicle, his face pale but alive. He was alive because of her. Twice now, she had saved him. But as the ambulance drove away, she felt a hand grip her arm tightly. "You think you are clever, Mrs.?" Caroline hissed in her ear, her voice low enough that no one else could hear. "You think you have won. But this is my house, my husband, my life, and I will destroy you before I let you take any of it away from me." She released Amara's arm and walked away, her red gown flowing behind her like blood. Amara stood alone, her heart pounding, her mind racing. The game had changed, and the most dangerous player had just revealed herself. The hospital was cold and smelled like medicine. Amara sat in the waiting room, still wearing her maid's uniform, still trembling from everything that had happened. The police had brought her here to give a statement, but they had also allowed her to stay and wait for news about Mr. Marcus. It had been 6 hours since the ambulance took him away. 6 hours of silence and worry and fear. Blessing had come with her, refusing to let her friend face this alone. They sat side by side on the hard plastic chairs, holding hands like sisters. "You were so brave," Blessing whispered. "I could never have done what you did." Amara shook her head. "I was not brave. I was terrified. I am still terrified." "That is what bravery is," Blessing replied. "Being scared but doing the right thing anyway." Before Amara could respond, a doctor in a white coat walked into the waiting room. His face was tired but calm. "Are you Amara Okonkwo?" he asked. Amara stood up quickly. "Yes, sir." "Is Mr. Marcus okay?" The doctor smiled slightly. "He is stable. You saved his life, young lady. If you had not performed that emergency breathing, he would not have survived. The water in his lungs would have killed him within minutes." Tears of relief rolled down Amara's cheeks. "Thank God. Thank God." "Mr. Marcus is asking for you," the doctor continued. "He wants to see you if you are willing." Amara looked at Blessing, who nodded encouragingly. Then she followed the doctor down a long hallway to a private room at the end. Mr. Marcus lay in a hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped softly. He looked weak and tired, but his eyes were alert. When he saw Amara, a small smile crossed his face. "There she is," he said, his voice rough from the water that had filled his lungs. "My guardian angel." Amara bowed her head respectfully. "I am glad you are okay, sir. Please, sit down and stop calling me sir. After everything that has happened, I think you have earned the right to call me Marcus." Amara hesitated, then took a seat in the chair beside his bed. It felt strange to be so close to him, to be talking to him like an equal. But nothing about the past 2 days had been normal. "The police told me what you said," Mr. Marcus continued, "about the voices you heard, about my brother and—" He paused, his face darkening with pain. "And my wife." Amara said nothing. She did not know what words could comfort a man who had just learned that the 2 people closest to him wanted him dead. "I did not want to believe it at first, Mr. Marcus admitted. "Caroline and I have been married for 15 years. I thought I knew her. I thought she loved me." He laughed bitterly. "I was a fool." "You were not a fool, sir. Marcus," Amara said gently. "You trusted the people you loved. That is not foolish. That is human." Mr. Marcus looked at her with something like wonder in his eyes. "You are very wise for someone so young. How old are you, Amara?" 22. 22. "When I was 22, I thought I knew everything. But I knew nothing." He sighed heavily. "I still know nothing, it seems." A knock on the door interrupted them. A police officer entered, his face serious. "Mr. Wellington, we have finished questioning your wife. She denies everything, of course. But we found evidence in her phone, text messages between her and your brother, planning the whole thing. We also found a bottle of the same poison that was in your champagne, hidden in her closet." Mr. Marcus closed his eyes, absorbing the blow. And my brother? He has confessed. He says it was all Mrs. Wellington's idea. She promised to share the inheritance with him if he helped kill you. The inheritance, Mr. Marcus repeated quietly. All of this for money. We are placing both of them under arrest. Mrs. Wellington will be taken into custody within the hour. The officer left, and silence filled the room. Amara wanted to say something comforting. But what could she possibly say? This man had just lost his wife and his brother in the worst possible way. No words could heal that kind of wound. There is something I need to tell you, Mr. Marcus said suddenly. Something the police discovered during their investigation. Amara waited, her heart beating nervously. This morning when I was found in the pool, it was not an accident, and it was not a second murder attempt. He paused, struggling with the words. I did it to myself. Amara gasped. What? After last night, after learning that Victor had tried to poison me, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Caroline, about the way she looked at me when the guards took Victor away, about all the small cruelties over the years that I had ignored. And I realized the truth before the police even told me. Tears formed in his eyes. I realized that my wife had never loved me, that my brother had always hated me, that everyone in my life only wanted my money. So this morning, when the house was quiet, I went to the pool, and I let myself fall in. I did not try to swim. I just let go. Amara felt her own tears falling. Marcus, I wanted to die, Amara. I had everything in the world except the one thing that matters. I had no one who truly cared about me. Or so I thought. He reached out and took her hand in his. And then you came. A girl I barely knew. A maid who had every reason to stay away and mind her own business. You saved me twice. Not because of my money, not because you wanted something from me, but because you are genuinely good. He squeezed her hand gently. You reminded me that kindness still exists in this world, that not everyone is selfish, that there are still people worth living for. Amara did not know what to say. She simply held his hand and let him cry. They sat like that for a long time, a billionaire and a maid, connected by something money could never buy. The next few weeks passed in a blur of police investigations, court hearings, and newspaper headlines. The story of the maid who saved the billionaire became the biggest news in Nigeria. Reporters camped outside the hospital, trying to get interviews. Photographers followed Amara everywhere she went. Mrs. Caroline was arrested and charged with attempted murder. In court, her beautiful face twisted with rage as she screamed that she deserved Marcus's money, that she had wasted the best years of her life with a man who worked too much and loved too little. She showed no remorse, only anger that her plan had failed. Victor was charged alongside her. Unlike his sister-in-law, he seemed broken by what he had done. He apologized to Marcus repeatedly, begging for forgiveness. But some betrayals are too deep to forgive easily. Both were sentenced to 25 years in prison. Through it all, Amara stayed by Marcus's side. Not as a maid anymore, but as a friend. He had promoted her to a position as his personal assistant, with a salary that made her head spin. She sent money to her mother immediately, enough for the operation and more. When she called home to share the news, her mother cried for an hour. My daughter, Mama Okonkwo sobbed. God has blessed you for your kind heart. I always knew you were special. It was not me, Mama, Amara replied. It was God working through me. The operation was scheduled for the following month at the best hospital in Lagos. Marcus insisted on paying for everything, including a private room and the top surgeon in the country. Amara protested at first, saying it was too much, but Marcus would not listen. You saved my life, he said firmly. Let me help save your mother's. It is the least I can do. When Mama Okonkwo arrived in Lagos for her surgery, it was the first time Amara had seen her mother in almost 4 months. They hugged in the hospital lobby and cried together, not caring who was watching. You look so different, Mama Okonkwo said, touching Amara's face gently. So grown up, so strong. I learned from you, Mama. Everything good in me came from you. The surgery was successful. Within weeks, Mama Okonkwo was breathing easily for the first time in years. The color returned to her cheeks. The spark returned to her eyes. She was going to live. Amara thanked God every single day. As the months passed, Amara's relationship with Marcus grew deeper. They talked for hours about everything, from books to dreams to the meaning of life. He shared stories about his childhood, about his father who built an empire from nothing, about his mother who died when he was young. She shared stories about her village, about catching grasshoppers in the fields, about her dreams of becoming a teacher. They understood each other in a way that neither had experienced before. One evening, exactly 1 year after the charity ball that changed everything, Marcus asked Amara to meet him in the library, the same library where they had first truly spoken, where he had given her permission to read his books. When she arrived, the room was filled with candles. Soft music played from somewhere, and Marcus stood in the center, holding a small velvet box. Amara's heart stopped. "Amara," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly, "this past year, you have shown me what true love looks like. Not the love that takes, but the love that gives. Not the love that demands, but the love that sacrifices. You saved my life, but more than that, you saved my soul." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "I am not asking you to be my wife because I am rich. I am not asking because you are beautiful, although you are the most beautiful woman I have ever known. I am asking because you make me want to be a better person. Because when I am with you, I feel like the luckiest man in the world." Tears streamed down Amara's face. "Marcus, I am just a village girl. I have nothing to offer you." "You have everything to offer me," he replied. "You have kindness. You have courage. You have a heart that shines brighter than all my wealth combined. That is worth more than any fortune." He knelt before her, this billionaire who owned mansions and companies and more money than most people could imagine. He knelt before a maid from a small village, and he looked up at her like she was a queen. "Amara Okonkwo, will you marry me?" The word came out before she could think, before she could doubt, before fear could steal this moment from her. "Yes." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up to embrace her. They held each other in the candlelit library, surrounded by thousands of books and infinite possibilities. Outside the window, the stars sparkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. And somewhere in a small village called Ikodu, a mother who was finally healthy smiled in her sleep, dreaming of her daughter who had gone to the city and found something more precious than gold. She had found love. The wedding was the biggest event Lagos had ever seen, even bigger than the charity ball where everything began. Guests came from all over Nigeria and beyond. But unlike the charity ball, this celebration was filled with genuine joy. Mama Okonkwo sat in the front row, crying happy tears as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle. Blessing stood beside Amara as her maid of honor, beaming with pride. Even Mama Cook from the kitchen was there, dabbing her eyes with her apron. Marcus waited at the altar, looking at Amara like she was the only person in the world. "You are so beautiful," he whispered when she reached him. "You are not so bad yourself," she replied, making him laugh. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They exchanged vows that came from the heart, promising to love and support each other through good times and bad. When the priest announced them as husband and wife, the crowd erupted in cheers. But the most magical moment came later. At the reception, Marcus stood up to make a speech, and the room fell silent. "Most of you know the story of how Amara and I met," he began. "A maid who kissed a millionaire in public to save his life. The newspapers called it scandalous. They called it shocking. They called it unbelievable." He paused, looking at Amara with love shining in his eyes. "But I call it the best thing that ever happened to me. Amara taught me that true wealth is not measured in money. It is measured in kindness, in courage, in the willingness to help others even when it costs you everything. She had nothing when she came to my house, but she gave me everything that matters." He raised his glass. "To my wife, my hero, my heart." The guests raised their glasses and drank. Amara stood up and kissed her husband, not caring about the cameras or the crowd or the whole world watching. She was no longer a poor maid from a small village. She was Amara Wellington, wife of the man she loved, daughter of a mother she had saved, woman who had proven that kindness and courage can change everything. And as she looked out at the smiling faces of her family and friends, she knew that this was only the beginning. Epilogue 5 years later. The Wellington Foundation had grown beyond anyone's imagination. What started as a scholarship fund for poor children had become the largest charity in West Africa, building schools, hospitals, and community centers in villages across the region. And at the heart of it all was Amara. She had become the face of the foundation, traveling across the country to meet with communities and understand their needs. She never forgot where she came from. She never forgot what it felt like to be poor and desperate and alone. Every child she helped reminded her of her younger self, the girl who dreamed of touching the clouds. Marcus supported her completely, proud of the woman she had become. Together, they had 2 children, a boy named Marcus Jr. and a girl named Hope. They raised them to understand that privilege comes with responsibility, that those who have much must give much. Mama Okonkwo lived with them now, healthy and happy, spoiling her grandchildren with stories and treats. She had become the beloved grandmother of the household, loved by servants and family alike. Even Mrs. Patricia had softened over the years, eventually admitting that Amara was the best thing that had ever happened to Wellington Manor. One day, Amara returned to Ikodu village for the opening of a new school built by the Wellington Foundation. The whole village came out to celebrate, including many people who remembered her as the poor girl who used to sell vegetables in the market. As she cut the ribbon and declared the school officially open, Amara looked out at the crowd of eager children waiting to begin their education. "This school is not just a building," she told them. "It is a promise that your dreams matter, that your future is bright, that no matter where you come from, you can become anything you want to be." She paused, remembering her own journey. "I was once just like you, a girl from this village with big dreams and no money. But someone gave me a chance. Someone believed in me. And today, I am here to give you that same chance, to believe in you." The children cheered, parents wiped their eyes, and somewhere in the crowd, a young girl who reminded Amara of herself smiled with hope shining in her eyes. That night, as Amara drove back to Lagos with her family, Marcus reached over and took her hand. "You know," he said, "when you kissed me that day at the pool, I had no idea it would lead to all of this." Amara laughed. "Neither did I. I just knew I had to save you, and you did, in more ways than one." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the Nigerian landscape. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked suddenly. "Leaving your village? Getting caught up in all the drama of my life?" Amara thought about the question carefully. She thought about the hard times, the fear, the danger. She thought about Mrs. Caroline's threats and Victor's betrayal. She thought about all the moments when she wanted to give up and go home. But she also thought about the good times, the children she had helped, the mother she had saved, the husband she loved, the life she had built. "No," she finally answered. "I do not regret a single moment, because every step of that journey led me here, to you, to our children, to this beautiful life." Marcus squeezed her hand. "I love you, Amara. I love you too, Marcus." In the back seat, their children were fast asleep, dreaming innocent dreams. Mama Okonkwo dozed beside them, a peaceful smile on her face. And Amara looked out the window at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. She had started as a poor maid with nothing but hope and kindness in her heart. She had ended as a woman who changed the world, one act of courage at a time. And it all began with a single choice. A choice to help instead of hide. A choice to care instead of ignore. A choice to be brave, even when she was terrified. That is the power of kindness. That is the magic of empathy. That is the truth at the heart of this story. It does not matter where you come from. It does not matter how much money you have. What matters is the size of your heart and the courage of your spirit. Because when you choose to help others, even at great cost to yourself, amazing things can happen. Miracles can happen. Love can happen. And poor maids can become queens. Thank you so much for following Amara's journey from the beginning to the end. This story reminds us that kindness is never wasted, that courage can change everything, and that good things come to those who help others without expecting anything in return. If this story touched your heart, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe to this channel for more inspiring stories. Drop a comment below telling me what part of the story touched you the most. God bless you all, and remember, Be kind to everyone you meet, because you never know whose life you might change.